The U.S. has seized 2 ships linked to Venezuela. The U.S. has seized 2 oil tankers linked to Venezuela, including a Russian-flagged vessel. The White House said President Donald Trump is not afraid to continue seizing oil tankers that have been authorized, despite concerns that they could escalate tensions with Russia and China. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was captured early Saturday, blindfolded and taken to the United States. Nicolas Maduro was charged with drug and weapons crimes by U.S. forces in New York and is facing trial. Meanwhile, Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as Venezuela's new president on Monday.
Ciudadana Delcy Rodriguez.
Venezuela's interior minister said at least 100 people were killed in a U.S. raid to capture President Nicolas Maduro. Cuba had previously said 32 of its citizens were killed in the raid. Meanwhile, acting President Delcy Rodriguez stressed Venezuela's willingness to pursue energy partnerships today, citing its history of economic and commercial ties with the United States. As the fallout from the U.S. ouster of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro continues, the urgent question is how his ouster will affect Venezuela's economy. Analysts say any relief from U.S. sanctions on Venezuela will depend on the relationship between Maduro's replacement and the U.S., and perhaps most importantly, what happens to the revenue from Venezuela's vast oil reserves. Since Maduro's capture on Saturday, the U.S. has issued a series of lightning-quick announcements about Venezuela's oil, the world's largest known oil reserves. The administration of U.S. President Donald Trump, which has threatened further consequences if Venezuela's interim government does not cooperate with its demands, said on Wednesday it would restrict Venezuela's oil sales indefinitely. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said the U.S. has already begun marketing the allocated oil, which had been held in storage due to U.S. sanctions on Venezuelan exports, and plans to regulate all future sales. The proceeds from those sales will be held in U.S. Treasury accounts, and the money will be shared between the U.S. and Venezuela, Wright said, without giving further details, including how much of the proceeds will go to Caracas. Wright's comments came a day after the Trump administration said it had reached a deal with Caracas to export up to $2 billion worth of Venezuelan crude oil to the United States, under which Venezuela would shift 30 to 50 million barrels of oil it had allocated. In the long term, the Trump administration is likely to ease sanctions on Venezuelan oil imports, eventually including imports of equipment and capital, Rachel Simba, an adjunct senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security, told the media. Trump, who claimed that U.S. oil companies were willing to invest billions in Venezuela's oil sector, said Simba would grant licenses to specific U.S. businesses that would facilitate the flow of foreign investors who could provide capital, equipment, and expertise. Venezuela's current oil production, at around 1 million barrels per day (BPD), is well below its peak of 3.5 million BPD in the 1990s. But none of this is expected to happen anytime soon. While Caracas had expected the U.S. to maintain some sanctions, it is possible that some oil exports could escape the measures, especially if Washington does not share the revenue with the country. Despite the Trump administration's announcements, there remains great uncertainty about what will happen next, said Cynthia Arnson, an adjunct lecturer at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. Oil companies are making very expensive investments, usually in difficult circumstances. So until it becomes clear which way it's going and how stable it is, the idea that Maduro's takeover will cause U.S. oil companies to rush into Venezuela is also a myth, Arnson said. Things are likely to get worse before they get better for the Venezuelan economy, especially since it's unclear how quickly, or if, the U.S. government will pay the country back for the oil it has been allocated. According to Tim Hunter, a senior Latin America economist at Oxford Economics, 78% of the Venezuelan government's budget is devoted to social spending. Cuts to those subsidies could have a very rapid impact on social spending, which could lead to social unrest, Hunter said. Already, locals are experiencing sharp increases in the prices of some everyday goods. Ultimately, oil revenues will be crucial to Venezuela's economic recovery, said Benjamin Rad, a senior fellow at the UCLA Berkeley Center for International Relations. But preparing the Latin American country's oil market requires massive investment in infrastructure. So we're years away from seeing that in Venezuela, Rad told the media. While Trump has vowed to run Venezuela and regulate energy sales, it's unclear what that might be. Trump has been very vague throughout this whole process, Rad said. It's not clear what the legitimacy of the current Venezuelan government is or what economic measures they can take, Rad said.